it's a Sunday again. So this time, Startup Squares decided that, you know what, it's enough of us enablers talking about, our founders, our entrepreneurs, our leaders. So it's time for them to say it on. It's time for them to come front to us and let us know what they have been through, what they're going through, and what they plan to achieve. Most important, Startup Squares is something which just recently got born out of some really exciting journey the two founders have had. In the last 10 years, in being in a crowded ecosystem of entrepreneurs, especially in India, both Vivek and I have now reached the stage where we represent Startup Squares. A Startup Squares which has got clusters of different category of entrepreneurs. A few being students who are just excited to just know what's entrepreneurship. A founder square, which is more about aspiring budding entrepreneurs. And then we have the founder next step, that is purely in regards to your investment support, which we look at as a cluster of entrepreneurs who are very clear and focused towards investments. And then comes these special entrepreneurs who are there with us today, these entrepreneurs who are incubated with us, these entrepreneurs who actually go day to day with us in their journey, and sometimes, trust me, if you know a little bit about me, you know how miserable and how difficult it would be to work along with me as a mentor. But these entrepreneurs have seen it through. They work through this, they have a dream, they have a vision. So today, starting off every week, every Sunday, we at Startup Tube on Startup Squares, we would be sharing these videos where you listen to the entrepreneur himself. Listen to his or her ups and downs, listen to their journeys, listen to their milestones, but then take something away from them, because that's the reason they're out here. That's the reason they're going out there and doing things which makes them so uncomfortable, but still go keep on moving on. So with me is one such person who I met, I think, around 6, 8 months back, but then he's just evolved every single day. I've seen him in a play in a zone where I've seen him evolve from just being a visionary to an execution person. I've seen him wear caps of a CEO, CTO, CFO, and you name it all. So today I'm really happy to start this series with Uday Shankar, the founder of Dia, an amazing edutech startup. So before I go start this on, all I would want you to say, and my regular line, is keep your papers and pen with you, because you got a lot of lessons coming straight from Uday. Good morning, Uday. As
Happy
always,
morning.
looking as handsome as you always do, you know. So thank you so much for being our first incubated startup founder in these series of interviews which we plan to do, because it's time for you founders to say the message as candid, as clear as it could be. So go for it, let yourself loose. It's a Sunday. So we're going to make sure that we give a lot of fun and some lessons for all the entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
So with, with your experience, with your passion, with your fire, if you were at a job, I'm sure you'd just be climbing up those pay hikes and the positions. So why are you an entrepreneur and not in a cushy job?
So, if you know, I graduated from PhD Tech Coimbatore, so one of the premium institutions in Tamil Nadu. So, it's like you get a PhD, you get a job for sure. That's the kind of the deal or kind of the expectation which parents have. So, for me, so I had won only in prizes almost 14 lakh rupees in the 4 years. And I had won all national level contests, international contests. So, even without going for an interview, I had almost 2, 3 offers coming from the companies directly. And imagine for somebody who's just finished his graduation and offer north of 10 lakhs. Anybody would be excited, right?
More
So
than anybody, I think your parents, you know.
very true. So then I had to make a choice. Do I take up the cushy job, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, enjoy life? So go to Bangalore, chill out. And that was one option. Or I get into entrepreneurship, don't know what life has for me in store, don't know how it is going to take things. So I had to choose between one of these two. So, but one thing which I'm very thankful to my parents is I was not pressed for money. So that is the biggest comfort I had, which I should be thankful for, which may not be the case with many founders. So for that, I'm absolutely grateful. So thanks to the support. So I had the choice to pursue my passion. So money was not my priority. So therefore, I did not take up the job. So my passion was towards empowering children. I could see what difference could be created. So that pursued me to actually take up a business and entrepreneurship rather than go for a regular job. So definitely, if I go to job, they'd be learning, they would be earning as well. But when I take up this route, I'm sure there'll be more learning than earning. So that is going to be the case with many founders. So at least the initial period is going to be like a unpaid MBA.
Learning the
teach you.
hard way, right?
Right,
Learning the hard way, not even easy.
right. So you pay the price and you have a practical MBA for 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's what usually happens with the founders. So that, okay, so since I had the support of family and I knew in my head that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, this is where I want to be. So I thought, let's take the leap. So come what may, let's give it a shot.
So there comes my second question. The most important part in any entrepreneur's journey is what they get attached to. As we always keep saying, as mentors, we keep telling all the entrepreneurs that it's not the business idea that you get attached with, it's the problem that you get married with. You get, and we literally use the word marriage because there's no other way you can move away from the problem that you're set out to solve. You should be so driven about it that you're literally living, sleeping, eating, sitting, anything you do, it's the problem you're attached with. So what's your problem that literally takes your life over, Uday?
Sure. So I remember the time when I was in, like ninth grade, 10th grade, should be the early 2000s. So I always had this passion for making things, meddling with things, tinkering and all that. So at that point of time, robotics was just a word, something like it is going to come in next 10, 15 years kind of a thing. So it was not very freely available, but my mom knew that I would love it. So to go for actually a robotics class for myself, my mom would spend lot of time on the newspaper, seeing where it is, and only like IITs and all these premium colleges would offer. And she would be scared if she can send me there and stay in the hostel. She would be worried if I'll be safe. And
Yeah.
and was not really sure like how it would be like. Would they actually teach me robotics? Is that what I actually want? We had absolutely no idea. So this just went by. So when I was in school, I never had a chance to even, make a remote controlled car. So I went to college as my first opportunity. I kind of had me as a participant attending my first robotics workshop only in the second year of my college. So until then, I had no experience. Though I had the passion, I wanted to do it. I was not able to do it. I really never had the opportunity. And all this on one side. So I was one among the 5 in India who got selected to represent at an exchange program in Australia. So I went there. I was volunteering with an organization called the Stem Cell Foundation. So there was something really interesting. They were integrating the community through robotics. So they had the Aboriginals and the whites, the children as one team. And these group of children would make a technology, a project, a hardware to solve a problem using technology. And these kids were just 7 to 10 years old.
Wow.
So when I was 7 to 10, I never even saw a computer.
True that.
So for me, when that got dial up, I was like, ping, ping, and it takes its own sweet time, and you wait, and you get.
And how old are you? I thought that was my childhood. Come on,
So
seriously?
that's how it started.
Oh my
And my dad
God.
had his big phone. So when I sent him a pager, and he says, call Uday, and he calls me, I was like, calls my landline. I'm like, it's a big achievement. So that was the time we were in. So now this particular girl, she was from Chidambaram, actually from Tamil Nadu, Indian girl. She was talking to plants. When we come from a time where talking to a person was a great thing, this girl who was like 7 to 10 was talking to plants. So plant literally was saying, whenever the plant was out of water, the plant would send a message to the gardener saying, water me.
Wow.
And she was just 17. I was like surprised. Okay, she's also from Tamil Nadu. I'm also from Tamil Nadu. I'm doing my engineering. I don't know how to do it. She's only in her 7th. She's only 7 or 8 years old, and she is making plans talk to her. So I was literally amazed by what she did.
I think it just opens your mind out, right? And
Correct.
to some extent, it just gives you a halt saying, what the hell am I doing, right?
Exactly. So I was literally surprised. I was like, am I really engineer? That was the kind of questions I was kind of having in my mind. I couldn't do like 10-20% of what that girl would do. Though in theory, I would outsmart the girl, give an exam, I could do stuff. But practically, can I do it? No, I was not in a position to do what even the girl who was barely 8 years could do. I, as an engineer, was almost 18, 20 years, I could not do. Right? But then one thing that was keep on making me think was she's also from India. She's from a remote village. So what is it that she's able to do and we are not able to do? So that thing I realized was first and foremost was the platform. So are we having the platform back in India? Are we enabling the children to do that? Is what the question was that kept ringing in my head. So over time, I started volunteering. So it was not just one child; they had a community of children. And imagine they were helping children make money by teaching part time. So a guy was barely in ninth standard. He was learning robotics, and he was in turn teaching robotics, and he was making his part time income and having his lunch money from that.
Wow.
So I was really amazed. So it's just that we never really had the understanding, or it's just the opportunity part. So when it comes to smartness or talent or IQ, I don't think anybody can beat our kids, right? So we are the best and the brightest. So that's why we ace all the exams, no doubts there. But are we giving the right platform, the right tools, the right support system, the right training, the sequence, the structure? Is that right? That is where we were missing out. So when I came back, I started teaching for free. See, this was a idea. They're saying that if we give the platform, our students can do well. It's just an idea, right? So unless we have evidence, we have proof of what we're saying, doesn't become that. So if you come back and you see so many children, see, we've seen children in government school who don't even know English. They were making robotic manipulators with syringes. So there is an amazing potential here. It's just that are we giving the right tools? And second, I even see that though my batchmates were doing engineering from other colleges as well, many of them would buy their projects. The reason being their ultimate aim was just to get placed. That scientific curiosity or the thirst to learn more was dying out, was more turning into a pressure of getting a job and making money. So when
Absolutely.
they actually go into a job, they're not carrying a technical expertise, literally being trained from start by the company.
Absolutely.
Because only if the curiosity is kindled from childhood, when they go to college or wherever, it would continue. So that particular thing of exposure, of consistent learning of the tools, the technology, the platform, if we enable people from an engage, we could actually make a huge impact in the future. So we have said children are the future, children are the pillars of tomorrow. So are those pillars strong? And how can they be strong if you're not making them strong?
Absolutely.
Is it not our responsibility to give them the platform? So if I, as an adult, could do a robot only in second year of college, can I enable a child in second standard to do that robot what I did in second year? So can I give them that leap of 10 to 12 years in which they can make their foundation, become an expert, choose what engineer they want to be, than just deciding they want to be engineer or not.
Absolutely.
So that clarity, that purpose, the definition, finding their passion in school is what is I feel is the biggest gap. If we're able to expose them to everything in a hands-on way, I let them identify what they love to do for the rest of their life. I think there's no looking back for our country.
No, I totally agree with you there on what you're saying on two levels. One was even much before I started my consultancy firm. I was working with my father, right, in the R&D firm, and he would come up with new technology, automobile products. And I know, and this I'm talking in early 1980s, right? And there was zero way of supporting those hardware technology product development, and I assumed that that was the case, and those days it was like that. But then fast forwarding it to around 2012-13, when we were ambassadors at Hello Tomorrow, which is a deep tech challenge in Paris, and when I visited there, I experienced the same thing what you experienced, because the kind of innovation we saw showcased over there. And you know what the best part was? It was we Indians only, based out of different parts of the world, presenting their innovation in an international platform. And that surprised me, The winner of 2013 Hello Tomorrow was one Mr. Balaji, who came up with these capsules to plant thousands and thousands, lakhs of trees by just shooting those capsules out from those smaller planes. Okay, and I was shocked. One, that it's we Indians itself there, and two, why is it that it's not happening in India? So I totally get your problem statement, which you say, being an engineer, why is it that 90% of the engineers say that I didn't want to be an engineer, my mother pushed me here, or my parents pushed me here, or I'm looking for a good job. Why is engineering an option for a job rather than for innovation, right? And I totally get your attachment towards that problem. So now my question to you is, you got a solution. I know it's still there a lot more to achieve, but I also know I've seen you, as much as I've known you, to go about and build those solutions and touch so many children and bring about innovation as their passion. So tell me about your solution now, your startup, your idea, and the road forward for it. Where do you see yourself heading?
Sure. So let me give you a small story over here. I think we can all relate to that much easier. So there was this kid that came to a summer camp. So Hindu, we are the knowledge partner for the Hindu for robotics. So as part of that summer camp, there was a child from Chennai, Sindhi Model School. His name is Preet. So he came to us for summer camp. So he loved what we're doing. So his mom enrolled him for regular classes. So just about 2-3 months. So and then there was this National Green Conclave. So in which almost 5,000 institutions from across the country would participate and drawing a few thousands in entries. So this particular child was the only one from Tamil Nadu who was going to participate. So literally we flew there in the morning, we came back in the evening.
Okay.
So all I did was I just taught him the basics of controllers, robotics and all that. So when he went there, I was open. He might win, he might not win. Is it worth the expense? I don't know. He's just going to spend one day, fly, check out Delhi and come back. As the worst case scenario. So we went there. So he was asked to present amongst the entire audience. And to my surprise that evening, though as much as all of us hoped to win, he didn't win one award, but he won 2 awards.
Wow.
So he got the award for the best presentation and the best solution. So this was among 5,000 schools from across the country with just 3 months of learning from us. So what he did was he made a smart dustbin, so which would thank people for dropping the waste in the dustbin, let people know the dustbin is full, and let people know if some methane gas is coming or all that. So he would make a centralized system with distributed control where each dustbin would be monitored. So it was a very practical solution, a doable solution, which we
How
actually
old was the kid?
should be around 12.
Wow.
So we were able to monitor all these controls over the internet. He made something what we call as the IoT, Internet of Things. So we did that and all this in just then. So 3 months of training and did the project in less than 1 week. So imagine he woke up at 4 that morning, we flew to Delhi, 10 o'clock we presented. So even after all the tiredness, the effort, the travel, so being able to present, even for an adult after so much of night, mostly that night would be hard.
Yeah.
So the amount of confidence that child had, because the solution came from the child, was his innovation. So all that we did was we gave him the right robotic tools, the IoT, the training. So to be very simple, the problem that we are solving is we are being enablers. We are being a support system. So we're just being your table. You can do the math. So you just 2 into 2. The answer is you. The answer is 4. So we just giving them the right tools and the guidance, and we just be the facilitators. So we don't say do this. We just ask, can this happen? So that is where we are from. So we just expose children to multiple domains. Now, when I say robotics, the first thing which people ask me will be like Chitty Robo Rajnikant. So when I tell people, it took Honda, such a huge company, almost 40 years to make a robot climb a staircase.
Absolutely.
And now you expect me for a robot to fly, become a giant ball, get 100 guns and fire them rapidly. No, that's not going to happen. That happens in movies. Even Terminator is not like, it's just graphics. So first thing we need to do is, we tell parents, A robot is something that will follow your instructions. Dot. Can be as simple as light on, light off. Don't expect Chitti Robo. Then see the reason we pray to God or we say God is great because He made us. We're not able to make anything close. That is where it is. So when we say robot, it is something very simple. So we break robotics into its core domains. So when I say a robot has to think, AI comes in. When I say robot has to move, mechanical mechatronics comes in. When I say the robot has to sense, electronics and triply comes in. When I say the robot has to follow this function, computer science comes in. So robotics actually is a cross-platform or a domain where multiple domains come together. So what we did was, see, one person cannot do everything. That is the fact of life. So what we did was we broke robotics down into its 10 core domains, and every year you would expose the child to one particular domain in a hands-on way. They would build projects of real-time significance by themselves, test the output, and understand are they enjoying to do it. So here, for us, it is not just about teaching robotics. Now imagine if I'm expert in robo, and the minute you ask me, Uday, what is your name? And I go, if I do that, there's no point in the expert I am, right? It is all about being able to communicate what you know. So what we focus on about robotics as a platform for children to develop critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. The 4 C's of the 21st century.
The complete package.
Absolutely. So where we did was, so we gave children the raw tools and they had to work as a team to come up with a technological solution. So in this, obviously the work as a team is going to be some differences. They need to be adjust, support each other. And here the team dynamics of child will improve. Is that not the successful DNA of every entrepreneur is that they're able to work as a team. So a lone person can never be a leader. So unless we work as a team. So the outcome was one side they learned technology, other side they had the important 21st century life skills. So it was like an overall development of a child. And only one good thing or something nice or what I would appreciate in what we do was, so we had people say, I don't want to do robotics. So which basically is they have the clarity that what they want to do. See, unless let's say I try something, I won't know if I want it or not.
Absolutely.
So children who tried it and enjoyed it, they have a clear career path. They know what they want to do. Children who tried it and don't like it, they know they want to take up commerce, or they want to take up business or whatever. So they are clear as to what they want to do. So they play that particular role in the team itself. So they make the presentations, they share the ideas, they become the bee in the team, they connect everybody. So everybody finds out what their real calling is. So, and people ask me, Uday, my son wants to be a doctor. Why should he learn robotics? And then I tell them one simple thing. Tomorrow, your son might be a doctor, but robot will be the surgeon.
True.
So, for your son to make friends with a robotic surgeon, he should know what is a robot, how it works. Just understand the basic terminologies. It's like saying, my son is going to be a doctor. I don't want him to learn computer science. Hey, you need to use computer for the rest of your life. So just like that, robots are going to be a part of our life day in, day out. And it is said that almost 8 to 10 smart robots are going to be in our house, in every house in the course of time. So unless you understand who or what you're working with, it's not going to be easy. So that foundation from early childhood on how things are going to work is what we're trying to give.
How many kids have you touched till now?
So we are 14,000 plus and counting as
Wow.
of date.
And in how many years?
So 7 years since we started. So first 2 years are for our learning and next 5 years were towards teaching. So I would say 14,000 children in 5 years.
So how many children are we looking at, sparking this innovation in the next 5 years?
Next 5 years, 10 million.
Excellent. Excellent. And we really hope you achieve that and much more than that. As I always say, it's that one spark which actually is needed to make that big blast. And you guys at Diriya are ensuring that that spark comes off at a very early stage. So they have a whole life to be the great, innovators that they can be in their own way.
Correct.
So I'm going to come back and bring the attention to you now, to yourself. You're this young entrepreneur, young absolutely because I'm a dinosaur and entrepreneur. So I call you young. So Give me one milestone. In fact, give the complete audience here, anyone, everyone who watches this video, that one milestone that makes you or you're proud of, good or bad, that makes you you today.
Sure. The first thing was when I came back from Australia. So I had to start off, or I started off actually as a non-profit. I had no plans for making an for-profit education robotics company at all. See, when I was in college, there were a couple of companies already into teaching robotics. I wouldn't say that I'm the first person who thought robotics in India. It's not the fact. So there were people who started before me. So when I started, what was not there was there was no robotics for those who could not afford it. It was an costly effort. It was not for everyone. So from Australia, what I thought was, let me be the Robin Hood. So let me bring people with money and people without money together and make the people with money sponsor for robotic kits and team them up with those who cannot afford it and they learn as a team. So I started off by working with government schools and orphanages, and parents were actually liking it because see, many a time we don't value parents. We take things for granted. We get money once we want it.
Tell me about it, love. Tell me about it.
So when these kids, I used to take them with me to the orphanage, and they used to see, they were like, "Oh my God, I've got so much in life."
Hmm.
So when they're working with these children, they actually understood how blessed they were.
Absolutely.
So these children, we put them as a team, and we used to teach them. So this was in my fourth year of college. So I started off once my third year was done. So in my fourth year, we started. So we started something called TRY, the reformer in you. So where the concept was, I would teach my batchmates, flow engineers free of cost, and they would get certified as a service or as a LOR they would get. And in turn, they would teach for free in government schools and orphanages. That was the deal. So I teach you, you teach someone was the kind of deal we started off with. And we started in Chennai and Coimbatore. So I used to travel every Sunday. Morning I would be in Chennai, night I would leave to Coimbatore again. So just for the day I used to travel. So we took up two orphanages in Chennai. So and we took about 10 children and we had about 5 children from regular school goers and other 10 were from government school and orphanage. So we put them as one team and we started teaching them on a consistent weekly basis. My friends from Australia, they sponsored 5 kids from Australia, which I had brought to India. So using those kits, we were teaching initially. So, and then we thought, okay, we've been teaching about 3 months now, 12 weeks. So about 1 hour every week. So 12 hours of teaching has been done. Now, for every one of us, what is important is we need to benchmark. So have we really delivered or have they really understood something? Or where do they stand with regard to their fellow peers in the education space? So there was this contest that happened at IIT Madras. It was a national level robotics contest. So we thought, let's take these kids and participate in that contest. Okay. The beauty there was only schools that already had robotics in their curriculum were participating. And the fee was usually north of lakh and a half, 2 lakhs was the kind of the fees. And some of them, they brought robots taller than me. So they brought big robots and they said they're robotic assistants, paramedics, delivering medicine, all that. So and then our kids, they went on stage to present. So they were given mics in their hand, the light spotlight was on them. So suddenly they thought maybe they had to, it was like they're playing statue and freeze. So they all went statue.
I can understand. Hmm.
And one guy was literally shivering like he got fits on stage. So they were literally silent. So I had to go on stage. So the kids, they held my hand. So I just went on one knee and they held my hand. I said, it's okay, talk. Nothing happens. And they started talking. So once they presented, they gave a practical demonstration. They explained how they did the code, they did everything. So judges asked them questions after questions. They're able to answer all of them comfortably. So I won't say that English was on the mark. That's not something which I was expecting as well. But they were confident in telling what they shared because they did it by themselves.
Absolutely.
And towards the end, they got the first place in the national level. They beat all the premium schools for one particular reason was that these children had made the project by themselves, but others, they had just bought it off ready-made stuff. So judges could understand that. That's why they are judges, right? So they know where they're coming from. Based on the questions they asked, they figured that these children have put a genuine effort without any backing, the amount of hard work they could recognize. So being a genuine solution from them, they got the national level first place. And these children were actually featured in print and mass media. And a lot of people came forward to help them. And uh, there were about 5 children who are part of the project. I'm still in touch with 3, and all the 3 are pursuing engineering right now.
Wow.
So that was one such amazing thing. And second statement, okay, we know that it works. So, and I just had 5 kids which I got from Australia. So for anything to be sustainable and successful, it has to be repeatable. So I could not get the kit from Australia every time. So the kit would almost cost me 20-25,000. Would that be affordable for India? Absolutely not. So we thought, let us make in India. So over the next 2-3 months, we did the complete R&D, we did reverse engineering with their permission. They were more than happy. See, they saw the genuineness in us. What I understood over time was, for many a time, it's not about how much money you give them. It's just that if they have trust that you will not cheat them and you will stay with them the long term, people will take the risk. There are people who will trust you. So if the business is genuine, trust comes first, money comes next. So without any money or any licensing fee, they let me to replicate the complete controller in India. In fact, they sent me the complete design which they had. So nobody would do that. So imagine giving a design to a processor to a stranger you know only for 6 months. It's like giving away your life's work.
Yeah.
So that is the kind of trust the people in Australia had on me. So they gave me their complete designs, open source, send it over WhatsApp or email. So I was like, really? You would do that for me? So once I did that, we saw that though the product was from Australia, we knew that we had to Indianize it. It not be suitable right away for us. So we started making our own versions of it. We made our own stuff, and at the end product, our cost was 10% the actual cost. If you're actually buying it for 20,000, you could sell it now for 2,000.
Wow.
That was kind of the difference we could achieve, and they were quite surprised.
We
And they
know
said,
to do the jugaad.
it's Jugaad, absolutely Jugaad. So they're even happy to say, Uday, why don't you export to Malaysia, US, UK? From India, you can export there, and we'll take care of this. So that's the kind of results you deliver, and people trust you to do a lot more. So that is the confidence that was created. So slowly we started expanding. We thought, okay, now if I take up a job or do my masters or do something else, we have to give up what we started off. So let me take this up as a passion, since money was not an issue for me at that point of time. So we started off, so doing the content, training, material, manuals and all that. They gave a good set of manuals for us as a base. So as usual, I used to go knock the doors of schools. So schools are used to so many salesmen. They wouldn't really entertain you. So for a good amount of time, I was going, waiting. See, and I was telling them, this is the cost, you buy, I will teach, and all that usual stuff I was trying to do. So basically, I had no idea of market dynamics. I was a good engineer, but was I a good entrepreneur? I was on the way.
I guess also you had this persistence, right? You never
Mhm.
stopped. Nothing could ever slow you down or stop you from what you had decided to. Because that's something which I see repeatedly in you, that nothing stops you from doing or achieving what you set out to. So that's one of the very most important and very critical personality trait for an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. So I kept doing that. I saw that in course of time, it was not working. I was going terribly wrong somewhere. So and then that is when one of my friends invited me to BNI, and I saw there were like 40, 50 people in suits. It's like, a big investor meet or
Yeah.
something. I went thinking that when I went, I thought I was going to pitch to a group of business owners and they're going to invest in the companies. What idea I had, seeing all the suits and the kind of the forum that was there. So I went in thinking that, okay, I'm going to pitch to 50 people and I'm going to get an investment. Was the thought process I went there with. But then I understood I was getting something more important. For any business, references are the most important.
Yes.
So I'm not talking about just the forum, but in particular can be through your friends, your family, people you know. References are a very important thing for business. So through references, I started getting it. So slowly, but still started going to more schools to references, but I was not converting. So still there was some gap which I had to address. So then in course of time, I realized that asking schools to give me money was not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So then I realized we modified up it saying that, hey school, I will give you money. So then I thought, see, already the institution is quite burdened, lot to handle, so many teachers, so much work. So adding load to them would not make any sense. Though money was one side, so they themselves had a good deal of problems to handle. So the reason they would not take is this would be an additional load to them. So not the right thing to do. So what we did rather was, we said, just give me an empty room. We will make that room into a futuristic robotics lab. We will put our people, we'll run the program for you. We'll do expos for you where parents can come, where media can come, where we can build the
So you
brand.
pivoted the go-to-market strategy.
Exactly, we changed the go-to-market strategy. And in course of time, we saw that schools were happy to outsource to us. In
Absolutely.
the place of school investing, now we were investing and helping the school ensure one, that the students were getting the best of education, the best of futuristic technology. The parents were happy to see child's progress. And in the process, the school was also able to make some additional revenue, which they could use for the benefit of children at a later point. So they had resources in their hand. So they were able to create a wow factor and wow experience for all the stakeholders, and that was a success. And then we saw, okay, we are with schools. Now, what do we do for the pieces or for children who want to learn from us but are not part of that school? What do we do? So we started hunting for a place where we could set up a lab and all that. And for almost 1 year, we couldn't really convince people to give us a space on revenue sharing basis. So for us, it wouldn't make sense to pay a huge advance. We are not the kind of money, I mean, that's not the kind of money we are flowing around. So when you start, you always have limited resources and maximum passion. So we try to sell passion. Only people who have passion will buy passion. That's the thing about passion. So we started pitching to people, and in course of time, we had a first center, a play school, who had offered us one room on revenue sharing basis. So then we started off with just one branch. And when people saw the kind of results we're delivering, and slowly we had a franchise model open up. So we had people come to us. So for almost 1.5 years, I was chasing people to give me space. And then people with space were chasing me saying that, Uday, please come here.
And I guess now would be even more, as because now with COVID and the pandemic, there are a lot of empty spaces in various cities. I think this would be an opportunity for you as a business and then a startup to kind of explore, right?
Absolutely.
So,
That's right. One more landmark, which you rightly mentioned. You know,
yeah,
there's a lot of space, a lot of people, and things which cannot be mobilized. So
absolutely.
what we did, we said, you've been in the education space, you know people. So why don't you make the best of the space you have? Children don't have to come to your space. Your space can go to the children.
Yeah.
So saying that, so in the last month, we became the first Indian company to be accredited by National Computing Center. Okay. And we are now offering a complete range of futuristic coding classes online. And you rightly said, for us, business is not about making money. It's about making money by helping people make money.
Absolutely.
So we built
Collaborative growth is what you should be looking at. Yeah.
exactly. So we built a wonderful structured partnership model where we would build and be the knowledge partner, and we let people talk to children, be the teachers, deliver, be the face of it. So we enabled people to start their own education business in something as low as 25,000 going up to 25 lakh rupees. So we said, no matter what you come, what your background is, what your potential is, we have something for you. We want to help you. We want to help you grow, and we want to see you successful, and we will stand by you in that process. So it is all about being the support system. And when you are that support system, obviously, when they are successful, we are going to be successful.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Uday. Before we end this episode, I want you to leave one message, one message to anyone specific. It could be just students, or it could be the entrepreneurs, or your generation people, or for that matter, just the ecosystem. Because now, during pandemic, all startups, all businesses, all entrepreneurs are in their own, totally unpredictable situation. So any message from you would be something which for somebody would be a life-saving lesson. So
The only thing which I definitely say is failure is inevitable. So when we might try many things, so we might think that this will work and it might fail. I'm not saying failure as a company, but failure as one of the initiatives of the company. The company will never fail as long as the founder doesn't give up. So it is all on the founder. The founder's grit, the tenacity is what is going to define the company. So as long as we are strong, we are grounded, we are knowing where you're heading towards, the company is going to stay strong. But of course, in the journey, we're going to face multiple roadblocks, multiple initiatives we take might fail. What happens is we go into frustration. In many cases, we get into depression as well. See, all those are temporary. We might think that's it, let's give up. But when you give up, you're not just giving up your company, but you're giving up the responsibility of making a difference in the lives of millions. So the minute you think the company is yours and you're doing this, we go into a self. But the minute you think that this is a company I've done with this particular purpose, the purpose is always bigger than the person. So whenever you think to give up, you should always think in your head that you are failing your responsibility to create an impact in the life of millions. So do not get into this business because you want to make money. If I wanted to make money, like you rightly said, I would take up a green job or go to US, settle, make millions of money. But here, what keeps us in business, what makes us we keep going is our passion, our purpose to do something larger than life. No matter what comes up, it might be frustrating, it might be depressing, it might be failure after failure. It is all about staying in there, taking help most importantly, because not one person will have all the solutions. Asking for help is the best thing you can do. Doesn't make you bad, doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. So when we ask for help, it only builds a team. So you're being yourself. So showing that you're not good at that doesn't say you're weak. It just says that you are strong enough to accept you need help. So when you do that, people come together and people make possibilities. Person does not, people do.
Absolutely.
So
And
be with the team, grow your team, build a support system, build your network. So it's all about how many people you have. People with a similar passion, working towards a common purpose can make anything happen.
absolutely, Uday. Thank you so much for your time. And with that, we've come to an end. And for me, it's always a pleasure engaging with Uday, working with him as his mentor. But today, in this episode, to all of you, one message from him, which I would like you to carry no matter what, is that people is what makes you, your business, your brand, your value proposition, everything. And I couldn't agree more, right, Uday? The journey has been completely about people. So today, take this with you guys, all of you. No matter what the situation, no matter what the challenge is, even a company is a company because it has customers, with it has people, it has, the masses that you're giving the value proposition to. If they don't exist, you don't have a company, you don't have a startup. So I think that's a very big lesson I take from Uday. Thank you so much, Uday, for reinforcing what I've always believed, that people is what makes you. So from my side, from Startup Squares, all we would say is we work very closely with Dia, with Uday. So if you are even 10% interested in innovation, just another 10% interested to make a change in the way education system is in India, reach out to him. In this video, the moment we end the session, we would be sharing Uday's email ID and number as well with his website. But also, you could always write to reach us at startupsquares.com and we will personally connect you to Uday. It could be anything. All I would like to end the session with is you do not have to design the collaboration and then reach out. If you feel this guy is so handsome, I need to reach out to him, or if you feel what he's doing has got lessons for you and you want to have a cup of coffee having a chat with him, or if you want to explore partnering with him, reach out to him. People is what makes all of us who we are. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Uday.
Thank you. Like rightly said, it stands for DR, Do It Yourself Academy. Go ahead, do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great Sunday.
You too. Bye bye.